to focus on another question, which is the limitations of military uses in the EEZ by non-costal states that do not derive from due regard obligations. The panel is constituted of 3 persons, as the last one. Charlotte BEAUCILLON, you are already assistant professor here at Paris 1, will begin by outlining the limits arising from the law of the use of force and weapons. Pascal Ricard, PhD, will succeed her to focus on the limits emanating from environmental law. And Benjamin Haute-Couverture will finally discuss these issues as a senior research fellow at the Foundation for Strategic Research. The floor is to Charlotte BEAUCILLON.
Thank you very much, dear Chair. Good afternoon again. So I will focus on a very specific issue, use of force and CBRN weapons law. And I would like to start this presentation by asking why we should wander beyond due regard obligations, which are the core topic of today's discussion. Well, there is a core political argument to going beyond due regard, which has been illustrated by the 3 panels we had today, insofar as due regard obligations have been used, even recently, to circumvent facing core legal issues deriving from the uses of the seas. And my suggestion is today to try to look these problems, or some of them, in the face, and I will focus on the law on the use of force and CBRN weapons directly, and not from the side angle of due regard obligations. I would like to start with some technical specificities concerning chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear weapons, and I will just stress that you all know, and we have been discussing somehow about it today, that the development of facilities is such for states that they can set up today intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBM, which have the specificity to reach a 10,000 kilometer distance, so these are long-range missiles, and this explains why and how some of them can end up within a 3rd state economic zone, exclusive economic zone. So you are aware that there were multiple launches of such intercontinental ballistic missiles from the DPRK, this is North Korea, which have been reported officially to have ended in Japan's exclusive economic zone. 2 of the last ones were in July 2017 and in November 2017, and they have been confirmed by the Japanese authorities, and this is public information. This has to be put in relation to the specific power of nuclear weapons as it comes to their scale, their effects, and arguably they concern the target, but also the neighboring countries, and in the end, the whole international community. This being said, I would like to focus on some legal issues that derive from my topic. The combination of the rules on jus ad bellum together with the rules on jus in bello is what is directly flowing from the title of my presentation. I would like to add the rules applying to chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear weapons to that. So my purpose will not be to state again the different regimes flowing from jus ad bellum, jus in bello, and CBRN weapons law, but rather to try to reconstruct what rules are applicable into the exclusive economic zone, and to point out some of which I found yet unresolved issues, legally speaking, and I would like to discuss them with you. So my first point is about jus ad bellum. This is the conditions under which a state can use force according to public international law. And the specific question that derives from our topic today, the exclusive economic zone, is first to know when does jus ad bellum start. As such, you know that the UNCLOS has settled the principle of peaceful uses of the sea, and this is entrenched in Article 301 of the UNCLOS, which is reproduced at the end of your abstracts of the UNCLOS. This is a direct allusion to Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter, as Professor Vidéo has referred to in the previous panel. And concretely speaking, it has to be interpreted, this Article 301 of the UNCLOS, as a simple reference to the UN Charter. Why? Because the history of the negotiations of UNCLOS show that there was dissensus on how far they could go, and the conference had no mandate to legislate on military activities as such, because it was at a time where demilitarization of such zones was at stake. So there would have been a need for broad negotiations to agree on demilitarization rules, which did not take place in the end. So UNCLOS is a mere reference to Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter. This is history. But today we have discussed also the fact that there is an important disagreement between two groups of states on the qualification of what are peaceful uses of the seas, and especially we have distinguished two main positions. The first position with the US in lead, and the second position with China in lead. So I would like to go a bit further into the details of these positions. We know that for the US and most Western states, we have the assimilation of the exclusive economic zone to the regime of the high seas, which would, in the end, mean that military activities within the exclusive economic zone of third states are authorized without prior consent. This is what we've discussed before. From the perspective of my communication, China's position is very interesting because of the reasoning of China. China is suggesting that military activities are in nature never in accordance with the notion of peaceful uses of the sea, because they are no less than the preparation of belligerent activities. So military exercises, military maneuvers would by nature be contrary to this notion of the peaceful uses of the sea. And what interests me particularly is that this conception is not only China's, and it has led to the issuance of several specific interpretatory declarations by states when acceding to the UNCLOS, and we count within this group of states Bangladesh, Brazil, Cape Verde, Malaysia, Uruguay, but also two nuclear states, India and Pakistan. This being said, this has led to forceful operations at sea with military incidents involving warships. And I just want to point to the fact that this was the case even before the adoption of the UNCLOS III, as early as 1968 and 1975 with DPRK and also Cambodia. But the most recent example I want to take was about the joint UN, US and South Korean exercises in the Yellow Sea. It was 2010. And why do I choose this example is because it was involving a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the George Washington US warship. And this led China to issue official statements qualifying these military exercises as threats to China. And this is my link to the jus ad bellum. This seemingly leads to an older opposition of views of what constitute a threat when military exercises are conducted into third states exclusive economic zones, and I hope we have the opportunity to discuss that further. My second point is, of course, about where may we use jus ad bellum. It is clear that the exclusive economic zone is not the territory of the coastal state. This is what states UNCLOS. Nevertheless, we perhaps are not entitled to make this definitive conclusion that an attack in a third state's exclusive economic zone is never an armed attack under Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter, just because it's not a state's territory. And I have three arguments to suggest to discuss this conclusion. The first is the deterritorialization argument, and it is made by Olivier Courtenne, especially, who suggests that the very fact that UNCLOS has introduced the notion of peaceful uses of the seas within the whole body of the law of the sea has had the effect to extend this notion of peaceful uses of the seas also to non-territorial zones, such as the exclusive economic zone and the high seas. The second argument derives from a mere reading of the resolution of the United Nations General Assembly resolution of 1974, which is defining what is an armed attack. And what I find interesting in that is that, of course, it is mentioning the state's territorial integrity, but also the attempts against its sovereignty, together with the political independence of the state. So these more political expressions may well be larger or broader to accept an armed attack against a state when it directly affects its exclusive economic zone. My third argument would be a weapon-specific argument. It is about nuclear weapons. It's because of their effects, the scale of their explosion, and the damage they can cause to the coastal state. And on this line, we have the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, advisory opinion of 1996, clearly stating about the lawfulness of the use of nuclear weapons, that the threat or the use of nuclear weapons is because of the nature